Hi there, everyone. It's Marc Laurenson here. And thank you for joining us as we talk about the astro weather for 2026. Now, I know a lot of astrologers have been talking about this particular year. It is a year like no other. But I'm going to be talking about it with my good friend and fellow astrologer, Nicholas Polimenakos from Sparkles of Gold. How are you, Nicholas?
I'm great, Mark. Thanks for having me on. I missed you. Feels like forever since we talked last. But yeah, thanks for having me on again, Mark.
You're very, very welcome. And you're back by popular demand. I've had quite a few people actually email me and say, when are you going to do another webinar with Nicholas? Because they really enjoy our interaction. And
That's
I've
very
said I'll
kind.
I'll I'll get around to it. I'll do it.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
no, that's very nice to hear. And it's always good, the world's big. There's different speakers for different people, and it's good when you connect with people, and find your crew and find the languaging. So that's really nice to hear, Mark. I
Yeah,
appreciate
it's
it.
great. It's great because, as you said, we're from other parts of the world. I'm from Australia, you're from the US. So it's not necessarily going to have a different understanding of what's going on because what's going on astrologically is what's going on astrologically.
Mhm.
But people love your style. People love your candidness and the way you express yourself and your understanding of things and your perspective of things. And the way I get my point across um, might be a little bit different. It might have a different slant or a different bent. And so hopefully, when we're together and when we chat together, it has that flavor of two things going into a blender and mixing really, really well. So
I like that. I'm into concoctions and yummy cocktails when things flow, right? Because I think a lot of times too, what's out there, how much information we take in and in the various formats, that much of what is presented to us is something that's not meshing together. Even if there's different views, it's kind of thrown at us for more of a more caustic, conflict-based thing. And it's not that way with you and I, and some other people in our lives, or you watching out there, when we gravitate and connect to other people who are different from us at the same time, we're able to connect and exchange. It doesn't get better than that. That's what being human is, when
exactly, exactly. So let's have a look at the stuff that's going down this year because everyone's talking about the outer planets all changing sign at once. And of course, that's one of the big things because that doesn't happen. Planets change sign, of course, but having all the planets from Saturn, from Jupiter out to Pluto, all changing sign together is a big, big deal. They're making aspects with each other as well. The top three, the big transpersonal planets, the ones, way out in the solar system, they're actually making what we call soft aspects to each other. There's a trine going on, between Uranus and Pluto, and right in the dead center, we have them both sextiling Neptune. And for a period of time, Saturn is going to be with Neptune as well. And this is the big deal because Saturn and Neptune are going to be meeting each other at 0 degrees of Aries. Okay, so we're talking about the beginning of the zodiac. We're talking about, the launching pad, so to speak. It is the initiating point. It's the Aries point. It's the point that, starts the wheel. And having two planets that meet together every 36 years, coming together at this particular point, is a big deal that everybody's talking about. Now, Neptune moves into Aries January 26, 27, depending where you are in the world. And then Saturn comes to meet it from February. I've got the dates here from February 13, 14 until February 21, 22. That's at 0 degrees Aries, okay? And then they stay in conjunction with each other for another couple of weeks after that as well. So this for me and what I'm understanding about this is a feeling for me of something that it's almost, to me, it feels like a wake-up call. To me, it feels like Neptune, Neptune being able to contact us from the inside out, being able to talk to us more intuitively. Um, it's about us coming into a place now of being able to recognize something on the level of who we are, who we truly are, essentially and spiritually, and then being able to come into a place of looking at the planet and looking at what's going on this planet at this particular time, and then having to take some kind of personal responsibility, which is a very Saturn kind of thing to do, very a personal responsibility, or taking a long, hard look at the reality of what's going on and trying to bring these two together. It's a little bit like a lot of people might say, is it like trying to structure your essence, or trying to bring spirituality into some kind of form or some kind of human way of doing it. So when you're looking out there in the world, when you're looking out there onto the planet in general, and you see what's going on with the planet in general, we need a huge dose of this. But we do need to be able to do it with ourselves first. We need to be able to come into a place in us, in our own lives, and be able to restructure a brand new version of what we're really here to do and to be. And this is really big because you've got those two planets as the bookends. You've got Uranus coming into Gemini in April, at the end of April, and then you've got Pluto already in Aquarius as bookends, both sextiling. So this is radical. This is hugely radical. And it's kind of like, how far do you stretch an elastic band before it has to break? How far do we have to push the planet? How far do we have to push ourselves before, things are going to bust? They're going to break free. So,
Yeah, when you're talking here, I had this image of being washed up ashore, like like, but with the feeling of like if I was coming out of the womb into a world, to a new world, but same time like washed up ashore. So it's like we're thinking about a Piscean story of Saturn being in Pisces the last 2.5 years and Neptune being there for 14 years, and the end of the zodiac. And what happens when we come to this place of like, understanding or coming to terms, whatever one house stands with this, with impermanence, and how things start and end, and that's life, and it's many different cycles. And then we have to trust an ending and trust that it takes us somewhere. So I feel like like almost we're all thrown into this massive river or wave or ocean, and where is it going to take us next? And I feel like when this, Neptune and Aries, Saturn and Aries together, I feel like we get washed up into a new place. And then you think about that, if you were washed up into a new place, and it was yourself first, and we thought about that, like, okay, what do you do? Like, you have to get your bearings together. Like, you have to understand where you're
yeah.
standing, and you're like looking around and taking in through your senses to understand, like, okay, what's my next step, or to what that is. If we
Hmm.
took it through the Aries archetype, of like instinct and how it leads you,
Hmm.
and what step you take next, and how each step is, if it's in somewhat of an unknown place, there's a little bit of fear involved. And at the same time, in order to take the next step, there's courage involved. There's something has to drive you to survive,
Yeah.
drive you to move forward. And so when you were talking, I don't that came up in my brain like, oh, we're getting washed up on this. We're gonna get washed up somewhere. Where are we going? Like, we know we're going somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
We predict, we forecast, we see things, what's happening in the changes, but we still don't fully know, right?
Exactly.
And so there, I think, is an interesting place, like say the moment of when you know you're getting washed up, like here, oh, there's a place we're going right here. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Like,
Yeah.
let's say we're doing it together, Mark. We're about to be washed up in a sword. We got to deal with that part.
I
And so
love that.
that's a huge influx too, if you think about the force of what it washing up on shore, or if to
It's
come out
huge.
of the womb
Yeah.
is everything.
I love that because there is no guarantees in this. But I think
Mhm.
people are after, so what's going to happen? They want the answer. So what's it going to look like? What's going to happen out there? What's going to happen to me? It's kind of like we don't know what's going to happen. We have no idea. And as you said, Nicholas, it is that feeling of trust or that feeling of faith you have to have in the planets being able to bring their energy or bring their vibration into your life in a way that is going to change things. Things are going to
Yeah.
change big time. But again, how is that going to look? And how do we have to navigate that? How do we have to tread it? It's gonna, we're gonna have to rely very much on, as you said, our bravery, which is a very Aries thing. It's a very Pluto thing as well.
Yep.
It's our bravery, our lack of holding on. Our lack of, that feeling of everyone trying to keep secure, everyone trying to keep safe. Uranus has no time for that. Uranus has no time, for keeping safe. Uranus is always about breaking into the new. It's always about trying something completely different. And so it's pushing us forward in that kind of way. And it's kind of like, where does it need to take you? Where does it need to go? And it's kind of like, that's going to be up to you. That's going to be up to you to work your way through it. That's going to be up to you to find your way through this being washed up or through the maze. That's going to be a big
Yeah.
part of it as well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too. So, let's say we're in a part of the story when we've been carried by the sea. We see the shore, we're about to be washed up. But I think there's a place there, the transition from, the Pisces to the Aries, or the Neptune being in Pisces there, that you kind of start to realize, or that even if you didn't want to be in that body of water and to have faith in where it's going to take you, you kind of know deep down inside that what you had faith in certain structures before, or what was felt supportive and became habitual before, doesn't work anymore.
Mhm.
It doesn't, it's lost its form. And maybe from the Neptunian angle of Pisces going to Aries, you start to see the illusion of it all.
Yeah.
It did have its purpose, it did do something, but then you're like, wait a second, this has run its course. Like, run the course. And then Saturn kind of brings that intangible, touchable reality too, and I think that this place where we're at, where we're okay, we're about to hit the shore, we're still carrying some things from the past. It's still remnants of that. And it's
Mhm.
how we come to understand it. But I don't think there's any at some point time to stand there and like, oh, what are these remnants? I think you're like, well, I'll deal with some of the remnants later. Uh, we're hitting the shore running, and it's just like, okay, now what? And so, there's this interesting liminal place there that I think a lot of us are dealing with, and we see it in the world. We
Mhm.
know there's things happening, we see things kind of turning into something new, and then we have the old, and we're like, what do we take with us? Oh, wait a second, that used to work. I don't like it anymore. I need to let
Mhm.
that one go. Actually, that has become burdensome for me.
Yeah.
And maybe one uses Saturn and Neptune to dissolve that boundary, dissolve that
Yeah.
structure. And in that place too, I think when you're about to hit the shore, you kind of, and I think in a moment, I think it's a certain moment for everyone where they're like, people can get to a place of there's a realization, but to understand why someone is here, why you're here, you
Mhm.
personally, why are you here? What am I here for? What's my calling? What is it? And some people, I think, are already a couple steps. They know their calling and they're going ahead. Some
Mhm.
are in fear because they might be called to something new, but they're holding on,
Yeah.
because for whatever reasons, no judgment here, they're
Yeah.
holding on. And so,
Yeah.
however one moves through that, how they do that, that takes faith. And at the same time, if you come to the real Saturnian realization, like, oh, that wall needs to be dissolved, or that structure needs to be dissolved. And then you get to that place. The next step is, well, I need to forge forward or build something else. I think one's personal code, their personal truth, what they stand by, is important. If we take a Neptunian portion, you know, Aries is going to do whatever it does on the adventure. It's
Mhm.
going to go right off like the Fool
Mhm.
card. It's just going to go and take actions, think about the consequences later. But I think what happens here with Saturn, Neptune, and Aries together, I think there is a deeper vision and story, actually. I actually think there's a bigger picture. We're not just running wild with no guideposts or anything. I think one has to know what they stand for, and then they see and okay, I'm taking this step, and it's not superficial. It actually is connected to my spiritual beliefs or, the code that I stand in.
Exactly, exactly. And the current is so strong here,
Yeah.
because we're talking about planets that have gone from water and earth going into fire and air. And so here we have the yang energy that's throwing everything around, that's mixing everything up and putting it out there in a big way. Fire and air, exerts, earth and water is much more internal. And so
Mhm.
everything's being thrown out there, and the current is really, really, really strong. And so they're in sextile when you're talking about Pluto and Uranus, they're in sextile to Neptune and for Saturn for a short period of time. And so that sextile energy fizzes, it's got an effervescence to it. Sextile energy is very, very compatible. It's kind of like a feeling of support, but it's support in a very excitable kind of way. And everything really there's an effervescence underneath a sextile. And when you understand the planets and what the planets are all about, and the need for it to, it's like shaking up, a soda, a can, and then watching it all kind of spray out. That's how I'm feeling about what's going on here. It's hard to contain this. And if you want to work against it, and you can, it's going to be your choice. If you want to work against it because of security and you don't want to move and you don't want to change things, when I say move, I'm talking about not move house, I'm just talking about moving
Yeah.
yourself. Chances are, and I'm not predicting anything because I don't predict, but chances are life will probably, in a way, become a little more frustrating than usual. It might actually feel a little bit more like there's something rumbling underneath you and you're holding onto the chair as it's rumbling. It's kind of
Hmm.
a little bit like maybe I should just allow, the rumble to take me to where it needs to go. Maybe I should, you know, stop fighting the rumble and actually move with the rumble. And it feels to me that, if you go if you go with the current, even though you might be thinking, I don't know where the current needs to take me, but if you go with the current, you're going to be feeling better. So what does that mean? Does that mean my life is going to be, happy and joyful and everything's going to work out? But I want to actually say, I don't know exactly how that's going to play out for you, but feeling better means I'm not fighting against anything anymore. I'm actually more relaxed and more trusting in the energy that's coming into my life at the moment that wants to take me way outside of what I'm used to or way outside of my comfort zone. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. And that's the feeling better part. And when you start to feel okay with something, that vibration is what attracts the so-called good things in your life.
Yeah.
So it's there for you. It's all there for you. It's just going to be a matter of basically how you surf it, how you come in tune with it.
Yeah, I think it's if anybody's ever been a social party and you kind of knew the signs of everybody at the party and there was a bunch of air and fire in the room. You know what happens when you get
Yeah.
the Sagittarius and the Gemini, they start mixing around the Leos, the fire, stuff starts happening. is it's like, there's movement happening. There's all the different types of expression, that
Yeah.
effervescence that you're talking about. To keep it real simple, let's say one wasn't in an internal place and it was very water feeding the earth and it's creating something, by the way. If you think about this, is creating something that's going to eventually push out.
Well, we're air
Um,
and fire. We're
yeah,
an air and fire couple.
yes, we're very air and fire. Yeah, it's a thing where and I've had a lot of fire come into my world the last 6 months of my life since my solar return in June, and so I've had this very present reminder of what happens when air starts feeding fire. It starts to get bigger, But if you think
It's
about what air and
combustible.
fire
Yeah.
are doing, if you just think about the basic, like what it would feel like to be in a social situation, and let's say you were holed up and you were kind of in fear of going out of the house or like, I don't know about this world, it doesn't seem whatever. And somehow some Gemini convinced you to come to this party and got tricked you and got you out of the house. And you went there and a lot of socialness, but air and fire was very present. There was music, there was dancing and
Mhm.
movement and you know, there's a feeling, there's something that happens there. So even if you don't know what the result of what's going to happen, you kind of carried, and there's a high, like a life force there to like use. And next thing you know, you're not so stuck,
Yeah.
so whatever. You don't know exactly the results, but you are moving and expressing. And I think a lot of times we're in a result focused world more than ever and wanting to know. And we have a lot of people that are in fear, understandably, by the way. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
totally get it.
I get it
At the
too.
same time, though, what do you do? And if you're frozen or if you find yourself in a place, you have to do something, shake something up. Even if one goes outside and takes a brisk walk
Hmm.
and moving around and the air's there and da, 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 or what happens when again, you're with colleagues and friends and you're moving, or let's say you go dance together or sing together. These are all creative expressional things, and you're going back and forth off each other. The notes are playing off of each other. You kind of
Yeah.
break off like the weight at least. Do certain problems go away? No, but your viewpoint changes after moving. And I think it's there where, let's say this year, when we have Uranus and Gemini and it's trine to Pluto and Aquarius, the discussion here and the ingenuity of things, of looking at things from a different angle with the mind. And
Hmm.
then you have the Saturn and Aries, Neptune and Aries, and eventually it's Jupiter and Leo in the second half of the year. We're going to get more
Yeah.
fire and air. So there's movement and expression. So I think if one were to keep it simple, not knowing the results, you can get off on this. You can at least feel something, even when it seems like all hope is lost. Um, Even if you were, let's say you were mad or sad or scared, even to express that out openly,
Yeah.
and find the vehicles for this.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about Jupiter because Jupiter is going to be moving from Cancer, where it is now, into Leo at the very, very end of June, beginning of July. Um, and the South Node is going to be moving roughly the same time. I think the South Node is kind of the end of July into August,
Yes.
goes from Virgo into Leo. So the South Node, of course, the nodes go backwards, of course. And the North Node is going to be going from Pisces to Aquarius. So we're going to have Jupiter making its way towards the South Node over a period of time. Jupiter in Leo and the South Node are going to be kind of closing in on each other. And that's going to be happening for quite a long time. Um, I had it written down somewhere. Um, Jupiter also makes a really interesting. I got this written down as well. I'll get back to the Jupiter South Node thing in a sec. But Jupiter, when it moves into Leo, when it gets to around about 4 degrees of Leo, it comes into like what we call a cradle aspect pattern, where it makes a sextile to Uranus and makes a trine to Neptune and opposes Pluto.
Hmm.
So it is going to, and that's going to be happening in July, between July 18 and 24. Jupiter is going to join the party, so to speak. It's
Yeah.
going to join the party with those other three planets in another aspect that's relatively soft. But, the Pluto Jupiter opposition is not necessarily going to be soft. But that particular period of time in late July of this year, that will actually conjure up something. There's going to be something, that feeling of something being made bigger. Jupiter loves to make things big. It likes to expand things. It likes to take things out of proportion a little bit more. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out because if you've got planets around that time, around, the early degrees of signs, particularly around 2, 3, 4 degrees of signs, those particular planets are really, really going to go through something where you're going to have to, I want to say, step up to the plate because
Yeah.
Jupiter is always going to be about confidence in the end. It's always about giving you the confidence to go for something, giving you the confidence to say, yeah, let's make it happen. So I want to say for that period of time, this could be a time for you, for anybody, particularly planets, people who've got planets in those degrees, to actually start to actually boost, I want to say boost a feeling of possibility or potential. It's like this can actually happen for me. Get into real positive, get into real optimistic, get into really opening yourself up to something really, really important or really wonderful happening to you over that period of time. Get into the groove, get into the groove of that kind of thinking and actually try your best to integrate that kind of energy because that particular period of time can be really super beneficial for you if you've got
Yeah.
planets particularly.
Again, we're at that party I was talking about, and a couple
Back to the
Leos walk
party,
in through
yeah.
the yeah, we're a couple Leos walking through the door. The party changes. It's like you invited some Leos. They're gonna show up. They're not only are they showing up. I mean, they're dressed a certain way. There's big hugs involved. The generosity, it's big energy, and it's just
Mm,
big expression in general. And so, for like you said, for those who have early degree planets, especially in fire and air,
hmm.
I'm one of these people. I think you can't hold something like that back. And I feel that considering the last year and a half of transits, when we're talking about these planetary bodies are moving into new signs, new age, some they've been in the background contemplating and reviewing. And at some point when you do that, certain people in certain signs, they can't take it anymore. They got to go out, they got to just say something or do something or express
Yeah,
something. And
yeah.
so when that time comes mid-year, Jupiter comes in, kind of pushes this story of fire and air. Again, I'm like this, and not only do I have confidence in it, but I've seen it not only in my client practice, but just being an astrologer and looking at world events and stuff like that. It's amazing what humans can do when given an opportunity and outlet, or especially if it seems like they're are pressed down or oppressed or put in a corner. That a lot of times it's essential in the human being to break free and to express their individual thought pattern or expression, whatever it is. And this is when humans become ingenious.
Yeah,
This is where things are created in a way where you never seen before.
yeah,
It doesn't, sometimes it's hidden behind the scenes and it comes out. Other times the experimentation, the expression happens openly and it's not perfect, but as long as it's expressed and shared. And so this is the other part of the Leo archetype that I really like is when I feel when the Leo archetype is balanced, there is a amazing sense of like wanting to share and the
hmm.
generosity that's
Mm,
involved and how it
yeah,
becomes reciprocal. So if we were trying to find a way with an idea or something or a movement or whatever it is, and the fire is feeding each other, and then there's the different ways of thinking about it. You have to bring in the air, and they're kind of just going off of each other. It turns into something.
Yeah.
So again, that kind of thing, if anybody out there knows what it is, they have creative outlets in their life or a studio or whatever. There's times when you go in the studio and it just doesn't work, and you have the studio, and then it's just like I hit this rut. And then what if things started to change? You moved the studio, or you rearranged the studio, or you had a friend come in. Let's say again, it was a Gemini that came in like, you know what? Have you ever thought about moving this over there? And then the Aquarius shows up and then just shows you some weird, different ways that you would never, ever think about. And you're like, wait a second, where did you get that from? And they just
Yeah.
told you, they just downloaded it basically. And then they share that with you. And they're talking to Leo in their creative studio. And Leo's like, thank you. And then 2 weeks later, everyone meets up, and all of a sudden the Leo's like positively on fire. Like
Mhm.
I just went off on a different tangent. I've never done it like this before. And then they're like, here, look what I made. And then they hand it to you. And you're like, wow, this is incredible. And look at what I made. And, and so there's this exchange that happens.
Yeah.
And there is the magic. And the thing to remember about this too, because I think that we're dealing with elements that are very social, is that it's not the end result. It's the interchange.
Yeah.
And so too, I think we have to take care of ourselves and understand ourselves in
Mhm.
our autonomous place. But I think a lot of the steps, once we create that, or we know where we're standing, where we come from, and we move outwardly to express, and that sharing, it's intricate to being a human being, to share and to reciprocate. It feeds our hearts. It's a love thing in the end. That's how
Yeah.
it works.
Yeah.
So, again, if those, certain parts of this year, it gets heavy, whatever, like, don't lose hope. And it's hard. And if you need something to break you out, go to that party you're invited to, or, the neighbor who's always blasting music in a good way and whatever, is always rambunctious, like, go talk to them.
Yeah.
Go meet them and talk to them, get to know them. Because even if it's the 5 minute conversation that you have during the day, that exchange and what happens, it can mean everything. It could alter your thought pattern, it can alter your course.
For
Then you take
sure.
that model and you put it on a mass level,
Yeah.
you know?
Which is very
Can't
Jupiter, it's
very,
extremely
yep.
Jupiter. Jupiter is very serendipitous. You can find yourself at the right place at the right time with Jupiter, and that kind of energy is really, really interesting because what we're dealing with as well is the South Node going through Leo. And I did a thing just recently, a little talk with Amanda from Astrology Hub
Mhm.
just recently, and I was talking about the South Node, the image of the South Node as the electric pool cleaner. The
Oh,
electric pool,
yeah.
in the pool, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
and it's like sucking up all the leaves and all the debris, in the pool. Because I was trying to get my head around what the transiting South Node is like. It's very, very different. The transiting nodes are very, very different to the natal nodes. The
Mhm.
natal nodes, have a story all of their own. But the transiting nodes take, roughly a year and a half in each sign. They take 18.6 years to go right around the whole chart. Roughly a year and a half in each sign. And the South Node, to me, not to everybody, but to me, has this feeling of cleaning up what we need to clean up around that sign.
Mhm.
Because the North Node is trying to beckon you in a way, like a searchlight, beckon you in a way to head towards the North Node area, which is Aquarius. And Aquarius, what we need to head to, as far as Aquarius is concerned, is to be able to come together. It's being able to accept everybody for who they are, to be able to understand individuation, to be able to understand uniqueness and originality, and have the joint mind kind of understanding and realize that if we all pull ourselves together, it's going to be a much, much better world if we become spokes in a wheel for the wheel's sake. Leo is very conscious of itself. Leo is very, very conscious of me and who I am and what I want. And it's very, very conscious of being noticed and being recognized and wanting to feel important and wanting to feel special. Something beautiful about Leo as well, because it's a very generous sign, it's a very creative sign, it's a very life-affirming, giving sign. But with the South Node, it makes me feel a little bit like we really have to clean up that ego side of ourselves, that part of us that plays superior, or that part of us that feels like, no, I don't do that, I'm too good for that, or that part of us that still wants, a million fans, on our Instagram, and we're still craving to be noticed, or that craving, that need to be recognized, see me, see me, see me. And it's trying to clean that up. It's trying to clean that up in a way where you can be the more positive version of Leo. And the Aquarian energy is actually saying, if you give your lovely Leoness, if you give your personality, if you give your creativity, if you give your beautiful smile, if you give your shine out there in a way that's going to affect others and affect the community and affect the world in a way where you can light them up. That's what it's going to be about. Jupiter is coming to meet it. The node's going backwards. Jupiter, of course, is going forwards, apart from when it retrogrades. But they're going to be meeting towards the second half of this year into the early next year. They're going to be meeting. And so there's going to be a real test, I feel, on everybody on the level of how generous they can be with this particular energy without falling back into I need to prove myself kind of traps. That
Yeah,
feeling.
I think it's interesting with something, if you take something with the internet or what's happened in the last, let's say, even 14 years, we're going to talk about Neptune and Pisces cycle really quick here, because it
Yeah.
was in the beginning of that cycle there, back then at MySpace was the predominant, most popular social media system, and Twitter was just coming up. And it was right after Neptune went into Pisces that Facebook took over as the biggest thing. And we saw benefits to this, and we've seen the byproduct now of the illusions of this and what's happened and
Mhm.
how we deal with community and how we interchange. And I think it's interesting this year, like to talk about the Leo South Node, North Node, Aquarius. With anything in opposition, I'm always trying to find the middle point and the balancing, right? And you explain it very well. Like, can certain things with the Jupiter and Leo and the South Node are there certain needs to be checked and let go of. And it's not saying Leos are bad or what they do is bad, but sometimes
Yeah.
when things are unbalanced, but we try to find a way to express ourselves individually. And does it, and while you take care of yourself doing it, does it contribute to outside of you, group of people, community?
Yeah.
And at the same time, the Aquarius could be very cold and distant
Yeah.
and separated, right? It's like, come on, it's like, I know you need your autonomy, but you also come into the realm. So the way they dance with each other is very important. And I think
Mhm.
along that journey of the South, the nodes being there for a year and a half, and the beginning of that with Jupiter there, you have to kind of figure that out. I also saying that as in community spaces in the inner, what happens there, I think this fire and air is going to change that. We're seeing the shift even on the internet of how people will be using the tool, or AI, whether they use it out or not. But I think many people are tired of the models. They've played themselves out. So what happens next? And I think a lot of this plays out in the fire and air and will play out,
Mhm.
with Aquarius group and how we stand as individual in the
Yeah.
group, and then how Leo does that, and how what becomes of that. And there'll be things that we'll have to explore, and some of the things will be difficult. In particular, it's interesting. I'm not saying it's all difficult here, but like after September 26th, Mars is going to go into Leo there. And it does something interesting, because then we'll have the South Node in Leo, then we'll have Jupiter in Leo, and we'll have Mars there. And that story there will be more than enhanced.
Mhm.
So, I think it's one of the biggest themes of the year, actually, second half of the year, and it will set us up for 2027. But again, I I would rather risk expression and have Jupiter pushing that and risk crashing and burning than withholding. And
Yeah.
if I understood, if I expressed out and I had Mars in Leo and Jupiter in Leo fueling, and it was a South Node thing, I would rather have it expressed out and boil over, so I know how far I can go or not, or what needs to let go of. It's anything's fire, things can get inflamed out and they purge out. I would rather have that than having things suppressed. But one
Totally.
has to one has to understand that, and how far do you go? And we're going to learn. People are going to learn in the Leo parts of their chart or whatever how far you go, literally, and know when, and to understand the balance. But inherently, though, considering what's happening with fire and air, that's just part of the story. That's just what comes with it. So
Exactly.
again, I want to say this really quick and not to go deep with this, but I mentioned the Mars and Leo transit. And usually Mars, what is it, Mark, takes about 2 months sometimes on a typical thing to go through a sign. It's a little less than that. Mars will do his thing with Leo, and then it'll go into Virgo. It's the end of the year. And then January of next year, Mars goes into Virgo, and then it's gonna stop. It's going to stop in the beginning of 2027, and it's going to go retrograde, and it's going to go all the way back. It's going to go back into Leo until about 20 degrees Leo. So the story is going to get interesting even in the 2027, because
Mhm.
Mars and Leo will be there. Mars will be in two signs basically from September, the end of September, all the way to June 2027. Mars is only going to be in two signs. It's going to be in Leo and Virgo. So I'm bringing this up right now just for people watching,
Mm.
because let's say we then bring back the Saturn and Aries and the Neptune and Aries function and all this puzzle we're putting
Mhm.
together. And Mars rules Aries. So the second half of the year and the beginning of 2027, I think it's very important that people understand fire, what it does, because we're going to deal with Mars retrograde that goes into Leo, and it's the engine behind Saturn in Aries, right? So this will be an interesting thing. It's kind of sneaky what happens at the end of the year, but Mars will be a little story. So that Mars and Leo, along with Jupiter, we pay attention to
Yeah.
that. And then there's eclipses, right? Right, Mark? Because we're coming to this, we're talking about.
We're talking about, yeah. I mean, Mars energy for me is always very powerful because, I always feel Mars. I'm a Mars person, I'm an Aries, so therefore the Mars energy in me, is always I always can sense what Mars is doing in the sky. And
Mhm.
I always kind of feel very, very whether I don't know how if everybody feels this, but Mars in us kind of kind of activates. Everyone thinks Mars is very much an external planet, which it kind of is in a way, because it wants to get out there, it wants to be fearless, it wants to win, it wants to be challenged. But but there's a lot of Mars inside of us. There's a lot of this kind of like this feeling of inner, this bravery that comes from within that we have to conjure up inside of us. And that's how I get Mars. I get this feeling of, that feeling of I have to be brave internally. It's that feeling of me, if you're about to jump out of a plane, you've got your parachute on, it's your very first time, and you're terrified of the whole ordeal, up in the helicopter or whatever it is, and you're edging towards the window and you're about to do it. It's that moment in time. It's that
Mhm.
moment in time where you decide, this is what I'm going to do. I'm shit scared, but this is what I'm going to do. It's that moment in time that kind of hangs out inside of us. It's that feeling of, I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to have to do it. There's no two ways around it. And so for all of us, with this Mars time that you were talking about, there's going to be something in all of us that feels in our own way, doing it in our own lives for our own reasons and for our own purposes. There's going to be that feeling of edging ourselves towards the helicopter window, you
Oh
know?
yeah. I think Mars is the sneaky planet this year, and I think people need to pay attention to wherever it is because if you while we're making this video, Mars is about to go into Aquarius, and it's going to go pass right by Pluto in the beginning of the transit. Then we're going
Hmm.
to do Mars in Pisces. So we're going to do some Pisces thing. Then we do Mars in Aries, and
And
then
then
all
it goes over Neptune and Saturn.
Yep, it does Saturn. It's going to pass
Mm.
through, and then eventually, we have the Mars transits that are going to happen, in June and July, where you have Mars Uranus in Gemini conjunction. They're going to happen. So we
Mhm.
have Mars hitting all the major planets, and it speeds through, and then it's well, now, and even before it hits Gemini, we do Mars in Cancer, and then we finish up, Jupiter in Cancer and Venus in Cancer. There's going to be a Jupiter-Venus conjunction that's incredible in the beginning of June before we go to Leo. So we're
Mhm.
tracking Mars. We do Mars Uranus, or Mars this, and then F Cancer. But
Yeah,
then it goes Mars Leo. It's kind of like then we do this push of Mars through all these signs where it's hitting all the outer body planets,
yeah.
and then it eventually does Jupiter South Node. But then it slows down. It's almost like we get washed up on the shore, and we're doing this stuff, and we're doing all this movement. All these planets are moving. And then we get to the second half of the year and we see what Mars is doing, goes through Leo, passes Jupiter in the South Node,
Mhm.
goes through Virgo. Okay, we're going. But then it stops in the beginning of 2027. And then it goes back. And it feels like the second half of the year, think there's other planets that slow down. And we kind of have to like take a quick look at our
Mhm.
actions or what was initiated or what
Mhm.
has happened ever since we crashed up on the shore. Like we
Yeah,
have
yeah,
to
yeah.
take notice when things start to go, oh, wait a second, how far did we push it? Because the force that we talked about earlier, Mark, of coming off to the shore, coming out of the womb, propels us, and we're just going, we're doing, and it's like, and we were taking it in, but I think at some point at the end of the year, and beginning of next year, we have to take stock in it all and be like, wait a second, like, I think that's when we push. It could be we push a little too far in certain situations. Let's say it's the
Yeah,
Leo part.
yeah, it's going to be, as you said, but it's going to be different for everybody on the
Yeah,
level of where they are in their lives at that
yeah,
particular period of time.
yeah.
Between April 10 and April 24 is when Mars is with Neptune and Saturn.
Yep. Yeah.
So April 10 to April 24 is going to, something's going to ignite.
If you're in Aries, like, or you're talking about your Aries stuff in your chart, I mean, if anybody's there in the beginning degrees, I mean, it's huge. You have a Neptune-Saturn conjunct together, then I
Yeah.
think when a personal planet comes in
Hmm.
and you're dealing with transpersonal, and then you're dealing with the limiter, like you're dealing with Jupiter, Saturn in between, and then you got Venus and Mars. They actually is when you really see stuff happening, I think, so when you're bringing up Mars and Saturn and Neptune, I'm like, I think there's no avoiding the shore. Even if you didn't want to, like, you're stuck on the rocks, and you're like everybody else is moving forward. I think you're gonna get propelled, and especially in the Aries part of your chart, let's say. But
Yeah.
I think I'm glad you brought up those dates. Very important because it's
Yeah.
actually, what were the dates again? It's interesting.
They're April 10 to April 24. Mars is
Yeah,
going to be with Neptune and Saturn.
and then
Um,
Uranus goes into Gemini on the 25th of April, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Isn't that an incredible leader?
yeah,
Um,
that's
it's
amazing.
it
Yeah,
is so it is so spot on. Jupiter joins the South Node between November 26 of this year and into May of 27. So it'll be with the North Node, with the South Node. Sorry, not the North Node. Jupiter will be with the South Node between November of this year and May of next year. So there'll be a lot of Jupiter revamping, Leo revamping around that particular period of time as well. You know what I found too? I'm not a big Sabian symbols astrologer, but
hmm
I do look at them very, very occasionally. I kind of like having a peek at them every now and again. On February 17, the eclipse in Aquarius, we've got the solar eclipse in Aquarius at 28 degrees of Aquarius. It does square Uranus, so it's going to be a strong eclipse. But the Sabian symbol for 28 Aquarius, the 29th degree of Aquarius, is a butterfly emerging from the chrysalis.
Oh,
That's a
wow. Yeah.
Sabian symbol. And they
Yeah.
give you the rundown of what that's all about. So just a Sabian symbol for what's happening on the 17th, 18th of February when we have this eclipse, this solar eclipse in Aquarius. It fits beautifully with what's going on basically around that
Yeah.
particular time, because that's the time that we're going to have Neptune and Saturn.
Yeah, because it's just if it's the 13th and 14th that Saturn goes into Aries. On the 17th, you're saying is the eclipse, and then it's like 2, 3 days after the eclipse, then we have the conjunction. I listen, if it was a movie, there's a lot of movies and a lot of TV shows to watch. But if the trailer for the show came up in front of you and they were like they set it up like this, like the way we're talking about the astrology, and then this is gonna happen, it's all concentrated prime time, you're gonna watch it. You're gonna not only gonna watch it, you're gonna wish you were in it. That's the attitude I'm telling people because again, it's a thing of where it's hard. This could be hard for certain people that this kind of change that is like a rush.
Mhm.
It can be very difficult, and I acknowledge that. But if you happen to be watching this, and let's say it's before then or whatever, acknowledge where you're at with this, and then maybe paint a story of like, how would you wash up on the shore? How would you use fire and air in your life? And imagine it. I mean, seriously, imagine it. And let's say the imagination of it aligned with your truth in the world of what you
Yeah.
stand for. And then once you came to that place and you sat there for a while, what's the feeling in your body that happens? Is it like, whoa, like, yeah, and you got to remember that feeling because to remind yourself in the course of the year, to like, there's times where we get that feeling and then we express out. And this is very important too, I think, to say this is let's say you ride that feeling, you express out. They're going to want to ride it 24/7, but you crash and burn.
Yeah.
And you have to know when to use concentrated fire and air, like when to concentrate it and express it out, and know when to come back and to replenish. But so you don't just burn out all at once because you want a steady fire, is what you really want. It's what you really want. So if you're looking at these dates that we're saying, we want to imagine how you could do something and like the rush and the feeling it would give you, like, yes, I can do this, or yes, I must do this. And
Totally.
then we create the structures to help us do this. It's never perfect, but can we understand how to wield fire and air? And I think this is a very important thing too, because if you talk to an Aries and like you're gonna go, hey, can you do this? And I don't even get the chance to finish my sentence because like I'll already do it. I did it already. I'm gonna brag about it. I did it already. And I'm already, you better catch up with me. I'm already 10 miles down the road. I'm like, whatever, okay. But if you talk about an Aries, they're gonna have to deal with the story of Saturn being in the world. They can't do Mars-based activities the way they have in the past.
Mhm.
So it's like, how do you tell an Aries that they can't do something the way it is? But if you explain it in a way like, well, what if you concentrated your Mars energy or the fire and you
Mhm.
did it in short, concentrated, but strong bursts?
Yeah.
So a Saturnian based step by step process instead of burning it all at once. So if one were to think about and get charged up of what could be or I want to do, you got it with the transits, but we
Yeah.
want to be smart about how you output your energy,
Yeah.
and I think Aries will be the perfect example of how this can work because we've just watched them sometimes crash and burn and then learn the Saturnian lesson. And then the next time they output the energy, it'll be a little bit more concentrated, maybe not so wild. There'll
Yeah.
actually be some basis and pillars and foundations of it. And then when we do that and combine it with the fire, or let's say Jupiter and Leo going on, you're actually building something that's long lasting. So again, some of the picture that you painted in April, right? and how we do that. I think from February into in March there, I think we're like corralling and trying to understand these newfound gifts or powers, it seems, when we're crashed up on the shore. But it doesn't mean you don't do anything with them. I think you have to test it and you have to know your limits with it and you have to play around with it, you know.
for sure.
And in that whole process I just mentioned, can you have fun and feel excited about it? And if that's how it's happening, keep doing it. And when it's not fun and it loses its whatever, that's when you take a break and take a step back, you know. So those are my thoughts on something like
No,
that.
they're fabulous, Nicholas, because I'm listening astutely to what you're saying because I'm a very early degree Aries. I'm a 3 degree Aries. So
Yeah.
this is going to be my life, This is my
Yeah.
life for the next, you know, God knows how long. So I'm really I'm really having to walk my own talk here. And I find I have to do this all the time, because I teach astrology and I'm thinking, oh my God, I've got to walk my talk now.
Yeah.
So here's a prime example of having to do that because then what you just said is perfect for me. Absolutely perfect for what
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, you
about, where I'm at in my life.
think about it from a martial arts perspective. Martial arts, Mars. You
Hmm.
know, it's slowly you build through steps, but you're still expressing out. You know, you're still expressing out, but there's a Saturnian discipline that's
Yeah,
involved, right?
yeah.
And that's the key, I think. You know, a
It
lot of
is the
times when we have
key.
Saturnian stuff come in our lives, we're like, oh, no, no, I don't want to do that because they're in fear of it. You don't know how to do it. That's why. And it feels like a weight or authoritarian figure or storyline or something. But then if you can catch it, like, oh, wait a second, you know, I see the rule sets involved here. I've never done this rule set before. And they're like, you know, the authoritative or Saturnian side, like, come on, you need to do this rule set. If you can make the rule set fun, even if you don't know how to do it, that's the key thing.
Yeah,
You know, that there's little accomplishments that happen, that the accomplishment isn't all in one chunk like the Aries wants to do or the Leo wants to do. That you're getting little chunks of accomplishment, but it's building structure and discipline, you know.
yeah.
And yeah. So anyway, I
I
have to
love
say that
that.
to you because we're here. I
No, I love it. I love it, Nicholas, because what you're saying, I'm taking it all in, it's fantastic. I just want to talk about just something just briefly because I don't want to dwell on this, but you have to understand that what's happening in the world we're going to go through huge, huge monumental changes over the next year to 2 years. The world is not going to be the same place. Now, and why I'm saying this, it's not because we can actually see it, it's already there. You know what I mean? We've got people who are running the world who are just out of control, basically, at the moment. And so something's got to be done about it. But if you can actually go back in time, Neptune-Saturn come together every 36 years. That's their cycle. The synodic cycle is a 36-year cycle, give or take. And the last time it was there was in 1989, was when Europe completely changed. Everything in Europe completely, the wall came down, the Berlin Wall came down. Communism, as they knew it up until that particular period of time, was over. It was finished. Everyone came back together again. Everyone rejoined. It was a challenging time for a lot of people because they didn't quite know how to pick up the pieces, but they did. But that was a complete restructure of Europe at that particular time. The two times before, 1953 and 1917, were times where Russia was going through their restructuring. The Russian Revolution was 1917. It was the beginning of the communist regime. Lenin took over, and it was the end of the czars. It was the end of the way that Russia was being ruled, and communism took over in 1917. Whether you call that good or bad or indifferent or whatever, it's not about that. It's just about something being completely dissolved and a new structure being reborn. Now, in 1953, Stalin died. and he was the dictator of Russia for that long period of time. Stalin actually died, and Khrushchev took over. Okay, Khrushchev still was a communist leader, but he was a lot lighter. He was a lot lighter. He's slightly more kind than Stalin. And again, Russia restructured in a very, very different way. It was restructured in a way where people got a little tiny bit more of the benefits that Stalin did not allow them to have. 1953 was big in America with the McCarthy era
Mhm. Yep.
where Senator McCarthy sent out witch hunt was a witch hunt for everybody in the industry, particularly the movie industry who had anything to do with communism. So again, we're talking about a big, big restructure of how the world is going to be played out. Now, what's going to be happening over the next couple of years, starting pretty soon, is going to be this. And as I said, I don't want to dwell on it, but we are going to be in our own ways, doing our own lives and being able to navigate and maneuver through our own lives personally in our story while all this is happening out there in the world.
Yeah,
So we're going
it's
to be
not.
dealing with two stories at once.
You're not, yeah, no one's disconnected. We're so intertwined right now with all this. I mean, if I think about when the Berlin Wall went down, everything happened with it was Saturn-Neptune conjunction that happened in Capricorn. I think it was close to the degrees, this new moon that we just had, but then we had if you think about this, when we deal with structures and things that are upheld, and then the Neptunian part of this, like it's almost like over there's the illusion part of it. It's almost like where water slowly trickles in and washes something over and dissolves it. And so you see a lot of structure itself, Saturnian things that are crumble or dissolve in some of the examples that you gave. And the reality is that that's where we're at. And that's what we're going to be walking into. And one has to understand. So all the stuff that we've talked about so far to this point on this video, we have to understand that is what's happening, not just in the United States, but in other countries too, whether we're dealing with Iran or with Russia or wherever else is going to show up, the Congo. There's a lot of situations that are out there. But if you
Yeah,
look to even one's own country, I know Australia's got their own stuff here they've been dealing with politically with boundaries and
totally,
immigration, all this stuff, right?
totally.
So it's happening everywhere. And it's like you're dealing with structures that have been around. Are they dissolving? Are people trying to uphold them? And then you have other forces who want to change them and build something new. That type of movement that we're in and what we're dealing with this year doesn't just start this year. It's going to move here over the next so many
Yeah.
years. So yeah, one has to understand and engage the playing field of where they stand and how they interact with it individually, especially when we're talking about a lot of Aries stuff, the individual stuff. And one has to, that's to go back, one has to know with where they stand and what they believe in. I think a lot of times if we bring in the eclipses in Aquarius, Leo and stuff, you start to share your beliefs in another and see if you align with other people. It's inevitable with humans to do they become very factionary, tribal thing. It's factionary. That's what happens. And it's to understand something like this and where you stand. Do I want conflict or anything like that? No, but it's a part of the world history and part of reality. And if we don't understand the playing field and take the reality of it, then one has to take in the reality and then one has to go like, do I fit here? Or what do I need to do to survive and move on in these changing times?
Yeah,
So, whether you're doing it within your community or within your family, or you're going to do it on the internet, which seems to be failing in itself, like what's going to become of how we use technology, Pluto and Aquarius, Uranus and Gemini, it's to
yeah,
understand the mechanism. I think it's a really good thing to recognize. I'm one of these people where can you stand and recognize where you are? And then there's that part of it. Then there's what your body's telling you emotionally. And you have to gauge that because it's emotions, it's a different time clock. And then can you step off? Like, can you just step off and look at yourself and everything to give perspective? Because sometimes we're making our decisions a lot of times based from an emotional place. And if the emotional place is coming from a place of survival
Mhm.
and a fight,
Mhm.
fleeing or fighting or that kind of thing, sometimes we have to do it, but you can't live that way all the time.
No.
And if we bring in astrology, we have to be careful too, because it's like how that can scare us, or it's going to be this or that, depending on the astrology rhetoric that we hear. We have to always take something and try to step away and look at everything. We acknowledge our emotional self, we acknowledge our energetic body. I think we really have to gauge that, acknowledge what your body's telling you,
Yeah.
and then you can understand where you stand. And so, on the bigger picture, when something's happening within the country, or there's a coup happening, or there's a major structure, the laws are being broken, or whatever that we're seeing,
Mm.
you know, and then we're hyped up and we're in fight or flight. And then let's say we're in fight or flight in an Aries mode, we're not thinking, we're just fighting. And we have to understand the strategy and the bigger picture of it all. And I think once one steps away or finds the place to have safety to look, your decision making, what you
Yeah.
choose to align yourself with, all this stuff is a bit more clearer and kind of can settle your nervous system. It's not perfect in changing times, but at least you feel like you have your feet on the ground, right? And
Yeah.
I think what I feel, and this is sort of a prediction, is that I think when humans are pushed into a place, and let's say it's a fight or flight, you know, things happen. But who you meet along the way is key. If you understand your neighbors or a certain place, these people, and you hear where they're coming from, where they're standing emotionally, and not with weaponry or not on a caustic internet comment section. I'm talking about human to human, face to face type
Mhm.
of stuff.
Mhm.
You break past boundaries. You dissolve the old boundaries. Let's say we're using Saturn Neptune here. We
Yeah.
dissolve the old boundaries, the old structures we're carrying with as a country or as a culture, and how we carry that with us and how it becomes a burden. And we have to shed those things, right? And once you do and you meet someone and you talk as individual, autonomous people, most of the time with respect and listening, you will find yourself to be in a lot more common with another person, even if it seems like to be your enemy,
Yeah.
right? And it's like to understand the thread that you have of humanity, and to not lose it, even when it seems like everything is crumbling
Mhm.
and like that stuff doesn't matter anymore. It does matter. And it's actually the thing that we always go back to in the end when all seems lost. So that's my little pep talk for the reality of things, of like, oh, structures are breaking down, like how we started talking about this, Mark, Saturn, Neptune, and we look at the past and we have history to correlate to support this, right? But how do we stand as individuals and
Yeah.
not to lose hope, and not to lose, and this is where I think fire
Exactly.
and air is very important, because it's like if we get creative and ingenious in the way that we can take care of ourselves and relate with other people, that's when we build something new, you
Totally.
know.
Totally. I
It-
couldn't agree
oh,
with you more,
yeah,
Nicholas.
yeah,
I love that. I love what you just said. I think so many of us are still caught up with it's happening to me. That feeling of, even people who are into astrology are looking at their charts and actually going, oh, this is all going to happen to me, and I'm going to have to be the responder, or I'm going to have to cope. And it's kind of like you keep on having to remind everybody that they are in the driver's seat of their lives, of their charts. Things are going to be happening. Things are going to be happening around us, but we are not at the mercy of this. You know what I mean?
yeah,
We're not being squashed by it. We're not being dragged along by it. We are still in a place where we can make, as you just said, where we can make positive choices, or choices that actually are going to work for us in the midst of a lot of challenges. Because life is like that. Life is going to be challenging. And this year is going to be bringing up lots and lots of stuff for people in all different ways for all different reasons. And we've got to realize that we are still in the driver's seat of the choices that we make around how we're going to navigate this. We can
Yeah,
navigate it in a way that's going to work for us. We really can.
again, from the choice-based way, again, I think it becomes very simple. I think it's, can you find people in your life? You might not go eye to eye on everything. Now, we got extreme situations where you're never going to be eye to eye on people. And by the way, I'll just be real. Some of those situations, they're actually literally dragging people and smashing people down. And
Mm,
we have to deal with that.
mm,
I could say that in my country, where I stand, we have a massive thing we're dealing with, and it's about to get crazier. But you know what? It's like the discussion amongst my friends or here in the United States is like, we need to stop this. And it's hitting people in a certain reality that it wasn't affecting them and it's affecting them now. And what is happening is a certain type of way of acknowledgement of a situation and then starting to acknowledge other people around you, as in your neighbors, your community. And the next thing you do is you're feeding each other and you're taking care of each other as a community. And even it's still things are tough, at least you're not alone. So when you go back to something like, no, the planets aren't doing something to you, I fully agree. They're representative of things, but they're not doing it to you. But there are forces out there that are doing to you, or they're creating economic policy and it's harder for you to get health care or to eat or do whatever else. That's a reality. Those
yeah.
structures need to be broken down. How are they broken down? It's like, well, you start talking to your neighbor, you start talking to the stranger in the grocery aisle and you whatever else, and you like look them eye to eye and you acknowledge each other first and foremost, and you realize even though they look different from you, even whatever, you both are paying the same price for expensive eggs. You're both trying to take care of your family. You're in the same boat. So it's not just a me, it's happening to me. No, it's happening to us.
Yeah.
So, I think when people understand the power of something like that,
Yeah.
that's when things can change. So we go back. How did the Berlin Wall fall? It just didn't fall in one day. It didn't just come down. No, it was a series of events
Yeah.
that were building up for a long time. And
Yeah.
we all know it's no secret. How do events like that happen? People start talking with each other
Yeah.
and they start doing stuff. And they're like, wait a sec, we're not going to deal with this anymore. We have to do something. Is the road hard? Yes. That's the real deal,
Mm,
right? Are we together, us wild, crazy, creative, ingenious group of people? Yes, we are. Am I going to be a wild, expressive Jupiter and Leo and take on that archetype at times? I will,
mm.
right? Oh, and you are going to play you over there. Why don't you take on Pluto and Aquarius? You do that part. Like, okay, and we interchange. I mean, if we were to think about infusing things, I think this is happening and will, So again, anyway, Mark, we could keep talking about stuff like this, but I'm glad you brought up the dates, the historical dates of this, because it's very important for people to remember that
Yeah.
we're going into a new age. It's
We
no stop.
are. We are. I want to say the world is not going to look the same. I think 26 into 27, 27 is still going to be an important year because it's not just going to be 26 and then 27 we just go back to smooth seas. I think 27 is going to be a year where a lot of stuff is still, in a state of flux, in a state of rebuilding.
Yeah,
But I want to say we're going to look back on these years, as we look back on those years that I talked about, we're going to look back on these years as years of big, big change. And as you said, Nicholas, where, even though it might feel like, we do get, we are kind of subject to what's going on outside of us, and there's no two ways around that. Of course we are. There has to be something in every one of us with all these planets that are changing sign, going into fire and air, making stimulating aspects with each other that are all wanting us to really. It's almost like they want us to become something that we've never been before.
yeah,
It's like that feeling of We want you to actually step right into your magnificence. And we want you to actually start to come way out of your survival zone, your comfort zone of just keeping everything nice and even and safe and just watching your bank account and having everything else going out in the world, as something that I'm blinkered to. It's kind of like, I don't think we can do that this year or next year. I feel that we really, really do at the moment, and the sky is telling us this, that we're going to have to, in our own way, come to
Yeah.
a place where we go through our own personal extreme makeover, where we go through our own personal dissolving and rebuilding as well. It's not just the world doing it, it's us doing it as well. And so we have to be ready for that, and we have to be brave enough, and we have to kill off a lot of the old stuff, Pluto style. We have to end a lot of the old stuff, stuff that's not working for us, stuff that we know is damaging to us, stuff that we know keeps us going around in circles, stuff that we know makes us feel sad or or makes us feel incompetent or impotent, or that feeling of I'm meaningless, I don't have anything to offer, I don't have
Yeah.
any value, I don't have any worth. Everyone's got to kill that off.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to finish that up.
I'm one of these people. I'll just be real. I think about the economics of the world and what has happened gradually over time with hypercapitalism and the structures and the byproduct of where we are now. I mean, most people feel that they don't have a say or they can't do anything, whatever. And
Yeah,
again, you can't keep a human spirit down. So, I think there is something, we're going somewhere else, and it sometimes the it something has to fall to pieces, and we find it's a crash that happens or it falls to pieces, and then you have to deal. I think people have to understand where they are in their world, their community, and wherever they are in the world, and understand the reality of situation and accept it, and accept that things are never going to be the same, or the things that have been in place are not working anymore. Once someone comes to an acceptance, once you accept, then you it didn't get real simple. Then I must walk this way. I must build this, or I must do it. Doesn't, there's no contemplation anymore. There's not, it's just doing. It's like, I must do this. Even if it's with a heavy heart, you must move on. I must go this direction. Again, some people it's really easy. They're already doing it. Other people it's not. For me, when I encountering and talking to clients and stuff that feel stuck, I can only help so much. But as a human being, what can I do to take care of myself with those lives? But how can I help? How can I help the person who can't take the step or is
yeah,
afraid to take the step?
yeah,
And I think that's what we're going to figure out this year. I think that's a big part of what's happening here, is because if you can't depend on the state or the corporation or whatever, because they're basically sucking your life force out of you, it's like, well, what do you do? And it's like, well, you help your neighbor. I'm going to keep bringing up the neighbor thing. You help your community, or you participate in community. And it doesn't mean you're just protesting on the street. Sometimes that's for some people. Other times it's like, hey, I babysit your kids because you got to go to the doctor for your own appointment because you're a single mom.
yeah,
Or blah, blah, blah. It's like these actions of supportive each other. So we're cohesive. But they're little things. They're not necessarily big things. They turn into big things. But again, I think when we do these actions, it's because when we realize where we're standing and it's not working anymore, and you have to accept that. And once you accept it and you start to move forward, I think with anything, when it comes to like you have to move forward, there is that Aries something like that, like when the equinox happens and the first degrees of Aries happen, if, like I said, that feeling coming off out of the shore or the womb, that wild raw life force, that when you must go forward, it it fuels you, it surges you, you know, and that's what I think people are going to taste this year and assimilate. They're going to see what it is for themselves, and then they're going to want to recreate it again. They're going to want to taste that again.
yeah,
And then when you do that, and let's say you did it by yourself a couple times. And then let's say you did it with 10 of your friends together. Then you're not so alone. Then you're not so powerless, you know? Then it feels like you could do anything, right? And so I feel this year and the next 2 years is about this, you know?
Very
So
much so.
anyway, I just needed Aries people in my life to remind me, which will be you, Mark, because it'll be
Yeah, well,
Cardinal leading us.
well, we'll see. I mean, I'm gonna go through my own version of what this is about. I mean, anyone with early cardinal is going to go through it in their own way. Anyone with early fixed is going to
Yep.
go through the Pluto experience, and anyone with early mutable is going to go through the Uranian experience. Okay. Everyone's going to have a taste of it in their own ways. And I'm not just talking about planets. I'm talking about your angles. You know, if your angles are in those particular areas, if you love if you love asteroids, if you love the Black Moon Lilith, if you love the fixed stars, you might have them in the early degrees. So
Hmm.
really take them into consideration too, for sure. For
You
sure.
described me, by the way. You described me. I have a 2-degree Aquarius moon. I have Venus and Gemini at 0. I have Saturn at 29 Taurus. If, just so people know, Mark, you have it happening to you, but to me, I'm right in the middle of it right
You're
now.
in it. You're in it as well.
I got Pluto on my moon. I'm like, trust me. I'm like,
Yeah. You're doing
you
the
know,
Pluto Moon thing.
yeah. So, and I know many other people, again, you're looking for examples in the world, or in the middle of this, you're going to watch this video 2 months from now, or whatever. Go look at people, certain people, all of a sudden out of the blue, they came out of the blue and they made something or they're leading something. Go look at their chart. I'll bet you they're going to have these transits of early degree fixed or mutable, like you're talking, fire and
Yeah.
air. It's there, as you could tell, I'm pretty jacked up. I'm pretty psyched actually for the transits this year. Not because of my physical chart, but I'm just one of these things where it's like I see the potential. I
Mhm.
see. I could just go back to 89 when we had the last Saturn thing. I'm like, we talked about Berlin Wall, but I think of from a creative angle what happened, even with music and creativity. From the late 80s music all the way till now, what happened with music, and you mix technology and what has happened. We had the 80s with watching a music video, right? But if you think about what happened after 89, early 90s, the internet slowly trickled in, and
Yeah.
how in music players, and it was eventually no longer a tape or a CD that you bought or vinyl. We digitized it, and like how people are expressing themselves musically from an artistic form, or it's photographs when things were analog and then it turned into digital with Photoshop and everything else. So just to give people another example, it's not just empire is breaking apart and
That was
falling.
the Uranus Neptune conjunction
Oh,
in the
yes,
early 90s.
in the early 90s.
That brought all
Exactly.
that
No, you're,
in.
yeah.
And
And
the
so,
and
like,
the internet was commercialized at that time.
eventually, slowly, we got early 2000s blew up. So you can look at the aspects with the
Yeah.
outer body planets since then. So for
Yeah.
me, when I'm looking at something this year of fire and air, I'm thinking, yeah, of course, countries and there's wars, there's conflict, there's all these things in it. But I'm also looking at like, oh, like, what are we going to create? Artistically, what are we going to do and come up with next? And that's where I'm funneling my energy.
We
That's
didn't
my outlet.
even we didn't even get to AI, which is
No,
another
and
is
that's a
another
whole
weapon.
nother. Well, it's a tool. Some people use it or not or whatever. But I mean, regardless, it's a thing of like whatever people use, or they go back to whatever old school
Yeah.
tools. But whatever it is, there is that this year, next couple of years, when fire and air, this creative power that happens.
Yeah.
That's what I'm excited for. I'm excited to see the novels that people are going to write. People's use of color.
Yeah.
If we think about trends, if I think about trends and we are talking about things that are fire and air and community and Aquarius, like what trend or what color brings people together, or a combination of something that's a trend that brings people together, but not just to sell a t-shirt. What if it was creative something that was there that binding people together for something else, right? For something more, you know? What if it was under the premise of like love and compassion,
Yeah.
you know? So even when it seems like hard times, I am not, when I have those feelings or ideas, or I'm talking with my creative friends, I have a lot of friends who are musicians and artists, and some are down and out, we have to do this. But then sometimes the conversation goes there of the wonder of it all, of the possibility of it all. And it's like, hey, we could spend this much time of reality and we need to, but we can create the equal amount of time to spend on what could be and what can be created together as communities. Why not? You know,
Mm.
why not? And history has shown us this over and over again. Revolutions, changes in culture, they started. It always happens
Yeah.
when humans create together.
Yeah.
So, okay, now I'm jacked up. Now, I believe it though. I stand by it, you know.
Yeah, same. Same. I'm ready, this year for me and well for everybody really. I'm psyched up. I really am psyched up and I'm at a stage in my life now because I'm a lot older than most people most people these days that I feel like I've got nothing to lose, you know? I got
That's
nothing to
it, Mark.
lose.
That's it, Mark.
And
That's it.
when you've got nothing to lose, then you can throw yourself hook, line, and sinker into anything. Because I truly don't, I'm not, I'm at the stage of my life now where I don't really need to hold on to anything anymore, which is, which for me is a good place to be, particularly with these transits coming up. So that nothing to lose feeling has got me in a place where if I throw myself into something and it happens and it works, that's nice. If it doesn't work, I don't care. I really don't care. So I really hope for people to be in a place where they can live life on the level of experiencing it and experiencing it for the sake of experience rather than it has to look like this. It has to look like this. This is the way I have to. It has to, the result has to be like this. The money I make has to look like that. The people I work with has to look like that. I want to say, let the universe surprise you.
Yeah.
Let the universe surprise you and just throw yourself into it and live it and suck the juice out of it and watch this year turn into something that you probably would go, oh my God, if I sat down with pencil and paper, I couldn't have written this. This is so much better than I would have ever expected.
Yeah, I love what you said, Mark. I like it. I like hearing you talk like this. I like this vibe and this feeling, you know. Again, and it's just there's the different ways that we do this and express yourself. You just express yourself in your way, you know, and the way you do it. And I like this nothing to lose thing. I really like it because, you know, if you even think about it, if there's someone in your life that's very important to you and you know, you've been with them, whether it's 2 weeks you love somebody or years or whatever, just think about love and like what happens with that. And then something were to happen, something, something happened like that jeopardized the relationship or it could have ended. And then you think about when you come back together and like, I could have, you know, what are we going to do with our time now? And then you kiss that person and you kiss each other. You're kissing each other like there's nothing to lose. It's not 50%. So it's the same thing. As if you've got in the world and you have that feeling and nothing to lose. Like, I'm going to engage with the world, nothing to lose. Oh, that stranger over there. Oh, I see they needed a little bit of help. I don't care what people think.
Yeah.
Hey, how are you? Da da da. My name's, let me help you out. Or whatever form you're going to do it in. I love what you said, this nothing to lose thing. I'm going to use this, by the way. I'm going to use your quote. I'm going to use this. But it's
Do
that
it.
feeling, you know. And again, you know, this goes, and I love it because it's coming from you, this Aries archetype, because that's initially it. That's it. You talk that you see anybody take an Aries action, like it's coming from this place. That's what they're doing. There's nothing to
Mhm.
lose. You know, it's like that's magnetic too. You know, by the
Yeah.
way, you know. So
Yeah.
courage and love, love and courage. I'm totally for it.
Yeah, totally. And it's very Neptune in Aries, you know, love and courage
Yeah.
together.
Cool. So what are you saying, Mark? We're going to start a cult. We're going to start a movement like Saturn, Neptune, and Aries are going, nothing to lose.
How funny. How funny is that?
Gonna have a Dionysian kind of party. Got nothing to lose. Could take it that direction. Yeah.
So, Nicholas, before we wrap up, is there anything else that we haven't talked about or anything else that is on your mind about this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think I for the quickie, there's a Venus retrograde that happens at the end, at the second half of the year. Venus is going to go retrograde in Scorpio in October. We're going to do
Yeah,
40 days. I think that's very important for those who are, let's say, Scorpio Libra. That's where Venus is going to do a retrograde. And that's
yeah.
always important. Here in the United States, it happens during a massive election cycle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That'll be
it,
interesting.
it's going to be a thing
And it
there.
makes a
I,
start point, doesn't it? Every time a Venus retrogrades, when she goes in front of the sun,
yeah.
she makes a star point. She makes one of her star points. Yeah.
Yeah, we're
So,
at an interesting point right now when we make this video because it's in March where Venus is kind of full out evening star, like kind of rises out. We
yeah,
just had the Venus conjunction with the sun here in Capricorn.
yeah,
And so we do this journey, and what happens for 7 months after that, there's this Venus with the crescent moon, these conjunctions. Then, anyway, when we get to the retrograde cycles and Venus kind of disappears into the sun, is a major, major point that happens.
yeah,
I would say out of anything else astrological this year, that's something people will point to, and we'll talk about this stuff.
yeah.
Again, the second half of the year is very interesting because we have planets that are retrograde, we have Venus retrograde, and we're
Yes.
setting up a Mars retrograde.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's kind of the vibe. But as for anything else, you could hear from my words today. I'm I'm realistic and hopeful. I gauge things and see what's happening and know like, oh, things must change. And my personal life and with my clients. And that's where I am. If anybody's going to take a message or take something from our discussion, is again, I'll say it on every single video for the next 20 years if I'm around for this, is I think creativity is everything. And creativity encompasses getting up in the morning is creative.
hmm
Making your oatmeal can be creative.
hmm
Whatever you write, anything, if you think about it as that, and that it's a ritual, that life is a ritual, um, that's how we establish form. And form and discipline guides us,
yeah,
you know. And if it is transferred into a thing, as in you're on a mission or on a path to something, and you incorporate something that you just said, Mark, you got nothing to lose. If you can find the passion and then the nothing to lose feeling, that's as good as it gets in life because you're doing and creating and
yeah,
moving through and you don't feel stuck. So
yeah,
again, the transit support movement and expanding out this year, right? It's just your way of doing it. Start simple, start very simple, right? It's like I said, if it's a different way of making oatmeal in the morning, tell yourself that. Like I did it different this time,
yeah,
and it tasted different. Whoa, that's
yeah,
another insight, So it could be with anything. You could choose whatever it is. You're going to go on a walk by yourself or with your dog and your partner. It's like there's the walk that you take on the same route.
yeah.
Take a different route.
Do it differently. Yeah,
Do
exactly,
it differently. Try it. That's all
exactly.
you need to do. Just start small and try it. So that's my last message, I think. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And yeah, yeah, I love that. I love the idea of doing something that you don't normally do. I think is the vibration of that. The feeling of trying something outside of your everyday. It breaks through something. There is a vibrational breakthrough on the level of experiencing or exploring something beyond your everyday, beyond the mundane. And that in itself starts a ball to roll. That in
Yeah.
itself starts a ball to roll in a direction that you probably never rolled a ball before. So I love that. I love the idea of
Yeah,
that.
and then usually when you do stuff like this or whatever, the other part of it is you never know what happens when you turn the corner. So sometimes it's like you're doing because you're taking a different route, and all of a sudden you see something you've never seen before, you meet somebody you've never seen
Mhm.
before, and again, it just changes molecular. Like everything is just like, wait a second, I see life different because we're in our silos, right? We're in our illusionary thing a lot of the times, and again, I'm one of these people. Listen, I'm a Gemini, so I'm going to take a different route on the way home. I mean, I do it all the time. But somebody's like, "How did that happen to you, Nicholas?" Or you always come up with these stories. I'm like, "Well, it's because I took a different route. Different thing. That's why it happened." Like say you conjured this thing. I'm like, "Yeah, my conjuring was taking the different direction." Uh, you know, the Aquarius part of me like they're going to deal with this year is like talk
Yeah.
about different direction.
Yeah.
So not only did I take a different direction, I decided to wear a different piece of clothing, like a pink hoodie and some other weird hat, and I went there, and then I ran into some other person that was wearing some whatever else I would have never run into. See what I'm saying? It's like that's where the magic
Yeah.
happens. It's like it's again, one has to configure this in their own way in their lives, like to take the risks that way. And
For
can you
sure.
do it then with pleasure? And can it be fun? Yes, you can. Why?
Mm.
Why not?
And it's meant to be.
I don't know if you know who Alejandro Jodorowsky is. South American film director. Pretty
No.
intense dude. He's made tarot decks and he's a wild Aquarius. There's an article in The Guardian that came up because he's hitting 94 years old. He's putting out a retrospective, another book. It's photographs, tarot card book. He's done it all. He's a wild Aquarius. But there was a quote there talking about the end of life. Like I'm coming to the end of life. Now you think about this, because somebody's talking about the end of life. And after he said that quote, I'm not doing this justice, I'm gonna go out with the biggest orgasm possible. That's what he said. And I looked at that and I'm thinking about an individual, like, and somebody can look up Jodorowsky. He's a pretty intense dude, but he's got these things that he does. He's like, when hard situations came into his life, it was hard, but he had to learn to say yes to it. And so when this didn't happen, instead of saying, okay, his vibe would be, yes, okay,
Hmm.
yes, change is here. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it gives me pain, but yes, right? Or I'm going to go take the risk or I have nothing to lose. Yes. And then, you're with other people that feels the same way. Yes, you could do that. And then you do it with somebody else. Again, it's a thing of the feeling of looking at life differently possible or taking actions or whatever you need to take to feel like you're moving forward and you feel like you have some sort of something in your life, not full control of your life, but a say in the world, a say for yourself. And a lot of times when things get monotonous, things must change. That's what the deal is, and that's what the astrology is. It's like, well, then just say yes to it.
Yeah.
Then I got nothing to lose. I'll go on and walk that different path around the block or go to the Sunday market over the Gold Coast or whatever. I'm gonna go to that booth over there and eat that thing. I don't know what it is. You know what I mean? So it's like that's the attitude I have this year, and I'm trying to tell people is like, that's the fire and air. That's this movement. It's like,
Yeah.
and it's yours.
That's the
Yours.
movement of exploring the it's the feeling of experiencing something way outside of what we're used to. It's not even what we're used to. It's almost like exploring somebody somebody else's stuff. But the interesting thing is it's your stuff. It is your stuff. You know what I mean? It feels like, oh, I'm going to try something I've never tried before. I'm going to go down this street. I'm going to talk to this person, which feels a little bit like something Nicholas would do. And it's kind of like, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? It feels
Yeah.
like something, a Gemini would probably do, which is not very me. But really, in the end, when that person is actually doing it, they're actually realizing, oh my God, this is a part of me that is me that I've just never allowed. that I've never ventured into, and I've given that to somebody else. I've gone, oh, that's them. That's what they
Huh?
do, and I'm realizing now that I am it. I thought it was just them, and now I'm realizing no, it's not just them. It's me as well. So discovering yourself in this brand new way is so important. It's so important for this year because that's going to be the door opener. That's going to be the thing that cracks things open for you. It's being able to come into a place of recognizing there's more dimensions to me. I'm multidimensional. I didn't realize I was. But now, in this year, with all these planets doing what they're doing, I'm realizing there's so many different facets of me that I've never ever ventured into. And now I'm allowing myself to go there. I'm actually feeling, oh my God, this is like my life's like a kaleidoscope now. I'm feeling like I can
Yeah,
really throw
I
myself into
everything you're saying fits the fire and air combination when they get together.
it. Is, isn't it?
Everything you're saying, it is. Yeah, that's really good, Mark.
It's totally that. It's
Yeah.
totally that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Nicholas, we're going to have to say goodbye, I think.
Yeah. I know we're gonna see each other again.
We could keep talking until November. I know that.
Yeah. We'll have to do it in person. Maybe I need to have my flight alerts again, and because for those who don't know, I interviewed you for my channel, my YouTube channel. I did a interview with you.
In the park
Um,
opposite where I live. Yeah.
yeah, and it was a good interview. It was great. Mark,
Yeah.
you were nervous. You were nervous. You know what though? But you took a chance with me. You took a chance with me
Yeah, I
there,
was nervous
like
because I thought, oh, personal questions. He's going to ask me personal questions. My cancer
no, but
rising went,
yeah, but you did. You went there, man. You took a risk and
yeah.
you went there. And then there were some things in the interview I didn't know about you or your past that you expressed
Mm.
out. And anyway, trying to keep on the theme here while we're ending this video. So,
Yeah, we could go down another road here, couldn't we?
yeah.
Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Nicholas, for being your wonderful, wonderful self and
Thanks,
sharing
Mark.
your amazing, amazing knowledge and amazing wisdom. And hopefully there was something in there that you guys could use this particular year and into next year that can improve your life in some kind of way. Okay, so lots of love to everybody. And we'll see you next time.